Morning all. As mentioned before, the focus for the conference is on innovation, but you will also note that there's a focus on socio-economic growth as well. And as such, I've chosen to focus more on that than the technology involvement of Aveng's realm. Now, if I start off with reference to the South African Green Paper on National Rail Policy, we find that strategic revitalization of the rail industry is required in order for the industry to become competitive. The sentiment also rings true for the rest of the SADC region. You also find that a competitive industry will create jobs and a demand for skilled personnel. There will be a demand for rolling stock and the development of infrastructure. Manufacturing plants will be established to meet the rail industry's needs, leading to regional engineering development. Track construction and infrastructure companies will emerge to meet the rail industry's requirements. Now, you are all also well aware that there's massive development taking place in Central Africa at this point in time, with the regional integration being a large focus of that. I will also focus here on the key enablers for sustainable rail systems in that regard. Now, in terms of the development, we will see that there needs to be a strong political will and government support for rail initiatives, as mentioned. There needs to be financial enablers, including sound operational cost structures and constant reinvestment. Rail needs to become efficient and competitive, and that I think is where we've all fallen short. Rail infrastructure in SADC has not been efficient. Sadly to say, even today, we were supposed to start at 8:45. Side joke, apologies. In terms of rail transportation, we have the best value proposition over road transport, over marine transport. Let me just check the slides. Yeah. And then you also note there that in terms of the government policies regarding the support of the infrastructure development locally and in SADC, rail policies that favor passenger rail over freight transport may subsequently deem rail transport unfeasible. Hence, we need to look at a model that caters for both passenger transport and heavy haul transportation. We have found also when looking at the green paper that was developed by the Department of Transport in 2015 that linking the two may not be feasible. Now, in terms of railway integration, it's imperative that rail corridors need to be developed so that logistic companies can deal with one management institution across the rest of SADC. We find at the moment that landlocked countries struggle to export their goods to ports and harbors outside of their reach. So harmonization of non-tariff-based barriers needs to be established as well. Now, just coming back to the enablers for sustainability in terms of the rail infrastructure. Now, we all know that rail systems can operate for sustained significant periods of time without capital investment. However, at one point or another, we need to start focusing on reinvestment to address the backlog in terms of efficiencies and operational structures. The slide here that I've chosen shows the impact of the rail infrastructure and what will happen over a period of 40 years should investment not take place. Now, in order to focus on the financial enablers of sustainability, we find that, as mentioned, regular capital investment is required. A sustainable system should be able to self-fund these activities based on profits generated. Some of the challenges as faced with the SADC region is that the majority of revenue generated is focusing on human resources, and as such focuses on the human capital aspect of railway infrastructure. There seems to be an imbalance because of that. We tend not to focus on actual capital investment. The balance sheet is therefore important in terms of focusing more on a stronger order for long-term investment. Then thirdly, there needs to be strong partnerships with third parties, and that's where Aveng's Rail can come in as well. Now, in terms of strategic partnerships with senior industry players, we find that the competitiveness and the efficiency of a rail network depends strongly on a strong maintenance regime. Timely preventative maintenance brings down the operating cost per kilometer and lengthens the life cycle of the asset. Aveng's Rail, as such, is one of the few senior industry players in the SADC region. We've been operating for over 60 years in the industry. We've successfully completed several construction and rehab projects, including Section 2 of the Nacala Corridor in Mozambique, the Limpopo Rail Rehabilitation Project, the Sishen Saldanha Rail Expansion Project, and the FMG Doubling Spur in Australia, just to name a few. Subsequently, Aveng is proudly African business. It's a proudly African business. We design and manufacture and refurbish locally in Boksburg, here in Johannesburg. From there, we're able to export all over the SADC region. We're also strongly involved, and we believe in training and skills development, thereby addressing the needs of the African region and SADC. Now, to focus more on the Aveng Rail's value proposition, Aveng Rail, as leaders in track maintenance, track rehabilitation, and track construction, we've got quite a flexible business model. Our plant is able to be easily transported from anywhere in South Africa to anywhere in the SADC region, literally. We have got an extensive fleet of tampers, screeners, grinders that will be able to cater to the needs of the SADC region. Our workshop facilities in SA is able to support any mechanized maintenance investment in the SADC region. And we're also able to hold substantial levels of stock. And that stock I'm talking about is the spare parts required to operate in Africa. In the beginning of the session, you saw the video that TE produced in terms of the locomotive for South Africa and for Africa. Now, Aveng Rail plays a big role in that as well, in terms of we catering for the African environment. And we are proud here to sponsor the initiatives of Sara locally. And we want to say that we are proud sponsors of the development in the SADC region as such. In conclusion, I must state here that developing a sustainable regional rail infrastructure requires creating an efficient, effective, and competitive rail corridor and channels of transportation. It requires collaboration of governments, SOEs, and the private sector. Rail's value proposition needs to rival that of road transport, of course, and it can be based on its natural strength, including economies of scale. As we know, the natural strength of railways is that we can focus on high speed and high volumes of traffic. Sustainability in rail can be achieved if we leverage each of each other's competencies and develop strategic partnerships. Hence, Aveng Rail is here, and you guys are welcome to come see us afterwards during the exhibition to come and talk to us about any partnerships likely in SADC region and also locally here in South Africa. Thank you.
I think at this moment, ladies and gentlemen, let me call upon our next presenter,